Today, we join in a celebration that hope has come. All around the world, people are celebrating that hope has come. Look, there's something special about the Christmas season. I have very fond memories of Christmas when I was a youth. When I was young, our family moved back to the United States. I was just 7 years old. And in just a few years, all my siblings, my older brothers, and my sister, they moved out of the house. And so that left just Dad and Mom and me. They moved to a different state. It was several hours away. But every Christmas time, my parents and I, we'd pack up the car, pack up our bags, and we'd travel 4.5 hours on the freeway through the snow for Christmas Day. You know, when I look back at it, I have such fond feelings of that. It seemed a magical time and a magical place. When we arrived, you could see the signs of celebration already from the street. There were colorful decorations, there were bright flashing lights, and there was a wreath of holly on the front door. And my mom didn't believe in decorations for Christmas. She still doesn't. So for me, stepping into their homes was like walking through this doorway into a fantastical wonderland. It had bright, colored holiday napkins with pictures on them. There was elaborate glassware that only came out for special guests, and we were drinking from them. They had tall, magnificent Christmas trees which reached to the roof, and some of them were real. You could smell the pine leaves. As the years progressed, my brothers and sisters, they had children. And, you know, there's something delightful about young children at Christmas time. They're full of wonder and excitement. They remind us of how this looks to those who have new eyes. When I look back on it today with fond memories, it seems like a scene from a Christmas movie. My childhood memories of Christmas, they look something like this picture on the screen. Well, not quite, but you get the idea. It's by the painter and the illustrator Norman Rockwell. He's famous for magazine illustrations of everyday life in the early 20th century. So you can see they're a little old-fashioned. This included also Christmas illustrations. And you can see his style is a little sentimental. To modernize his images might seem maybe a little too sweet, a little too sentimental, especially the Christmas ones. But he was a talented illustrator and a storyteller. It was his job to sell something to the viewer. Here's a picture of Santa Claus drinking an ice cold bottle of refreshing Coca-Cola. Now, the biographer of Norman said this: his longing for community spoke to America's sense of itself, particularly during the war years, when a sense of national unity, it still existed. Now, this is a painting of Norman himself, looking in the mirror and then painting himself. Now, what's surprising with all these pictures that he painted and these illustrations, that he struggled with happiness himself. One of the biographers put it this way: he was an anxious and lonely, self-doubting man. He was seldom comfortable inside his own skin, and he found a sense of belonging only through his art. Another writer put it this way: on most days, he felt lonesome and loveless. His relationships with his parents, his wives, and his 3 sons were uneasy, sometimes to the point of estrangement. Now, you don't see that in those pictures, do you? They all look pretty happy. Because Norman was selling and he was painting a dream, but it wasn't a dream that he was living. Recently, a friend told me in an unguarded moment that they hated Christmas. And what they hated were these types of portrayals of Christmas, these types of pictures. And it's because what those images, what they represent, this idyllic family. This painting is called Merry Christmas, Grandma. In it, you see the husband, the wife, the 3 children. A dog leaps up to greet them. So to my friend, this is an ideal which is not attainable. They're at a point in their life where they can't have children. They're not married. So this dream that Norman painted of having a family that looks like this is impossible. And if it's not possible for them, what does that mean? Have they failed? Stop for a moment and think about it. There are many people who don't fit comfortably into this particular picture. There doesn't seem to be any space for them. Now, while that picture for others might be heartwarming, maybe to me, for others, it excludes them. You may be one of those people. Or you might know someone who is like this as well. They may even be members of your own family. Indeed, your family may not fit into this picture at all. So for some people, the Christmas season is not something that they're excited about. It can fill them with anxiety because they just don't fit in. They don't have good memories, or they don't expect good things. They may have families where there's major conflict. They don't talk to members of their family anymore. Perhaps Christmas then is a reminder of dreams that they failed to achieve. They might find Christmas stressful for financial reasons. There's a lot of expectations around Christmas time. So the problem, I'll put it to you, is our picture of Christmas. The unique picture that we all carry in our minds, which for us represents Christmas. I think everyone, they have different pictures. It depends on what culture you come from. It depends on your family life, what it was like growing up. It depends also on where you are in your life right now. It all depends. Imagine if we all shared our pictures at the same time. Would any two look exactly the same? Now, every year, our school gets the children to make Christmas cards, and then they print them up. Here are the cards my kids made this year. So this is the first one. It's an abstract of a field of multicolored Christmas trees. This is the second card. Does anyone know what that is? Anyone? It's a hamburger, that's right. It's a hamburger on a dramatic yellow and orange background. I can't explain it. My point is that we all draw different pictures. They make sense to us, but it may not make sense to other people. I think that most things of value that we place in the picture are really, they're about ourselves. It reflects our dreams. It reflects our aspirations. It reflects our desires. Let's take a look again at this painting called Christmas Homecoming. A mother joyfully embraces her older son. He's dressed as if he's just arrived from a long trip coming home. Under one arm, he's got a bunch of presents, so many that he can barely hold them. Behind him is a large extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Their younger children, they surround the son, and in the back is a mother holding a newborn. Does anyone notice anything unusual in this photo or this illustration? Can you spot it? I've got some nods here. Towards the center back is a man with a pipe in his mouth. He's looking reserved but pleased. That's the artist, Norman Rockwell. He painted himself literally into the picture. This is his picture. But he wasn't a happy man. Now, all these images of Christmas, they're not the picture that the Bible gives us. It's not the picture that Christians have passed down from generation to generation. We have a far better and more compelling picture than this. It's a picture of Jesus, who is the hope of the world. It's a picture that gives hope to all people, not just some. Not just big and successful families. It's a picture that has space for all kinds of people, all cultures, all races. And so today, this is why we celebrate that Jesus, the Son of God, he came to bring hope. Not just bring hope, he is our hope. We're not simply celebrating his birthday, we're celebrating that hope has come to the world. Jesus is the hope of the world, what the world was waiting for. So what does hope look like? Does it look like this? This is the nativity scene we've seen many times around Christmas. We see Jesus, the baby, in the center, wrapped in white cloth, glowing with a heavenly light as he looks upwards. Mary's face above him radiates with reflected glory. Joseph on the left, he looks on with earnestness. And in the background, we have shepherds pointing at wonder at the newborn. It's a very traditional image for this time of year. But that's not the picture I want to present to you today. I want to present to you something different. If we believe in the message and we believe in the purpose of Jesus Christ, then we need to look past these iconic scenes of his birth. There's something more. These are wonderful images. We can be free to celebrate them. I'm not against them. But when I think about how hope it comes to the world, I don't picture a baby in a manger. I picture Jesus as a man. I picture him preaching the good news of the coming of the kingdom of heaven, telling people everywhere about hope. It looks to me like this picture. In the center, we see Jesus seated next to a well. He's speaking to a woman. She's standing to his left. Her body is positioned, turning away to leave, but her face is directed back towards Jesus and downwards. At their feet, between them, is a vessel for carrying water. You probably know this story. It's the story of Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. It's not a picture we see much around Christmas time, I'll grant you that. But I think it captures beautifully Jesus' message of hope. The story begins with Jesus and his disciples in Judea, which is in the south of Israel. If you look at the map on the screen, he begins in Ephraim, which is at the bottom. And he plans to return to Galilee in the north to continue ministry. It says in John 4, verse 4, now he had to go through Samaria. And if you look at the picture, that seems logical because Samaria sits between Judea and Galilee. Samaria is the section in the yellow. Except, in Jewish culture, that wasn't logical at all. Pious Jews did not travel through Samaria. They could, but they didn't. The Samaritans were once part of Israel, but in Jesus' time, they were seen as a corrupted offshoot of the Jewish faith. They were like that brother or the uncle who no longer comes to Christmas events because of an argument that started 700 years ago. Who has a relative like that? Don't raise your hand. The logical choice, the logical Jewish choice, was for Jesus to travel the route that is marked in gray. So you go east. You cross the Jordan. You travel north until you are past Samaria, and then you cut back. You go out of your way to avoid Samaria. But John writes that Jesus had to go through Samaria. John is saying that something compelled Jesus to go this way. Now, in a town called Sychar, he meets a woman at a well. In 4 verse 7, it says, "When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, 'Will you give me a drink?' His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. She says, 'I'm a Samaritan. You're a Jew. How can you ask me for a drink? Our people haven't talked for 700 years. And in verse 10, it says, Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Jesus is saying this about himself, that he's the gift of God. In just a single sentence, he lays out God's plan for restoring humanity. She doesn't understand it at the time, but this is a tremendous revelation. This is the very first time in John's writing that we hear Jesus speaking about the living water. The very first time. The only other time we hear him speak about this again is towards the end of his ministry. Why is he telling her in this place at this time? Jesus says to the woman, "If you knew me, you would understand that I haven't come to be served. I don't need your water." You see, Samaria wasn't a place for me to pass through on my journey to somewhere else. Sychar wasn't just a forgettable stop for food and drink in my journey. You see, my purpose and my goal is not somewhere else, because I don't just pass through. She didn't understand. The disciples, when they came back and they saw him talking to her, they didn't understand either. Why is he talking to this woman? They said to themselves. And he answers them in verse 34. "My food," said Jesus, "is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. This is what I do. Everywhere I go and I meet people. That's my purpose and my goal. I came for you. I came for other people like you. I know you could never come to me. The distance between us is too far for you to reach. It's too far. There's too much between us. So I came to you. I bring you good news and I bring you hope. That you can lead a meaningful and full and rich life in God when you drink this living water, and you just need to ask. You don't need to earn it. And that water, it will never let you down. It's eternal. It's always reliable. And I came for a village of people that are just like you. I came for a whole world of people just like you." So why does he choose to speak to this particular woman and share the good news of hope? There are so many reasons why she's not the right kind of person. Firstly, she's a Samaritan. And we know the Jews, they didn't have dealings with Samaritans. They were considered heretics and sellouts. Secondly, she's a woman. In first century Jewish culture, women were separated from men in private and public and religious life. The very religious Jews said if a woman was ever in the streets, she was to be veiled and was prohibited from speaking with men. Thirdly, she had no social status without a husband. She's had 5 husbands, and most likely they were all failed relationships. At that time, divorces were easy for men, but almost impossible for women. A woman alone had very few legitimate ways to support herself. There was no welfare. And the man she's with is not committed enough to marry her. So that leaves her so vulnerable. Lastly, she's a social outcast. The reason she comes to the well in the middle of the day and not in the morning or in the evening is because no one else does. That was the right time to come. They avoid the heat of the day. And if she comes at midday, she doesn't have to talk to people. So, from a Jewish perspective, there's no good reason for Jesus to talk to that woman. By any social and cultural measure of the time, she just doesn't count. In fact, you could say she'd been counted out by everyone, probably even herself. From the disciples' view, there was no good reason for Jesus to talk to this woman. From the villagers' view, her own village, even from the Samaritan's woman's view herself, there was no good reason for Jesus to talk to her. But yet there was a good reason. Jesus, our hope, has come. And he's come to say to her and to you and to me, you do count. No matter how you feel, no matter how low other people see you, no matter how low life has left you, you are not hidden from my sight. I see you, and because I see you, you have worth and you have value. I come to you, and I offer you everlasting life. In verse 13, he says, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, meaning the well. But whoever drinks the water I give them, they'll never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will be in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. It's a great joy for me that we have this story recorded in John, and I hope it's a great joy for you. I think it's an absolute delight. When I read these words, when I meditate on this passage, I can say with great confidence that hope has come. Not because of a baby in a manger, a light in the sky, and the 3 wise men, but because of a man called Jesus, the Son of God. He walked to a forgotten village and a rejected community, and he spoke words of mercy and love to an outcast woman. In the Gospel of John, she's the first person to hear that Jesus is the living water. He comes to the needy and the outcast, those without hope, and he gives himself, who is the true hope for this world. That hope came 2,000 years ago. That hope is here today. Jesus is our hope. Let's celebrate our hope today. God bless you, church. And ask the band to